Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Division of Information Technology's weekly webinar series. I'm Laura Niemeyer, the Web 2.0 specialist in the Learning Technologies group, and today we are joined by Walt Pasquini and Leroy Gallen, the coordinators in the Image Development and Support group here at Maryland, and also our Mac guys. That's what we call them. So they're going to be here answering any of your questions for efficiently working from home. So any questions, just feel free to type them into the chat pod in the lower left-hand side of the screen, or you can raise your hand to speak, and then just hit the talk button, and you can get your questions in that way as well. So welcome, Walt and Leroy. We're happy to have you here today.
Thank you for having us, Lauren. It's fun to be here.
Yes, same here. I appreciate the opportunity.
So I guess to kick things off, maybe let's start with purchasing a computer. So can you take us through maybe how, what all these specs mean? Like what's the difference, GHz, MHz, RPM? How do you know what the best computer is for your needs?
Well, basically, the first thing you have to decide is exactly what you plan on doing with the computer. What type of work? Are you going to do basic word processing, internet surfing, or are you going to be doing something more intense, for instance, graphics or video or high-end computations? All those things will determine what is the best computer for you and what direction you should move in terms of things. Megahertz, gigahertz, all those things, all that varies according to the type of processor you have. So you can't put a whole lot of stock into what's called clock speed. So when you see 2.8 gigahertz, you know it's relatively faster than the same processor as, let's say, if you have 2.8 gigahertz processor, it's a Core i7, and you have a 2.5 gigahertz processor, that's Core i7. One's going to be relatively faster than the other. But in the reverse, you could have a 2.4 gigahertz i5 and maybe a 2.4 gigahertz i7. The i7 will be faster. It's a more powerful processor. So those are things you have to consider. The other thing you want to look at is how much memory you have. Memory is the space that a computer has for doing the work it does. There's a difference between memory and hard disk space. Hard disk space is storage. It's where things are stored, but it's not actually where your computer does its work. It does all of its work in the RAM, which is the memory. The more RAM you have, generally, the better your computer will run.
Were you still on the whole RAM spiel? It's also good to know that the more RAM you have, it's not necessarily going to make your computer run a specific application faster. What it will allow you to do is, for example, if you interested in running a lot of things, a lot of applications at the same time, then you do need a lot more RAM, especially for those folks out there who want to run Windows on their computer and run it side by side, for example, with VMware Fusion or Parallels Desktop. You do need a lot of RAM on your computer. If you could max it out, go ahead and do that so that you could allocate as much RAM as you want to Windows. Especially also if you're going to be running any of the Adobe Suite software, they eat up a lot of RAM. So those would be one of the applications where you would want to make sure you have a computer that's well stocked with RAM.
Along with the more RAM is better theme, if you're using Outlook for Mac, the one thing that will make a bigger difference in the relative speed of Outlook is the amount of RAM you have available to your operating system as opposed to your processor speed. A faster processor does make it somewhat faster, but we've noticed that especially if you're running on a Mac, you're running Outlook, and you go from 4 to 8 gigs of RAM, you will see that Outlook runs much, much faster. And if you can push it up to 12 or 16, Outlook actually runs at a rate that I would find acceptable. But if you just increase the processor speed, you generally don't get that kind of bump in terms of performance.
Yes, and going back to the whole processor speed thing, also another thing to keep in mind is that you a lot of times will see the processor will be has 2 cores or have 4 cores or more. Um, Basically, that means it could run a lot of processes in parallel. And this is important also going back to the whole Windows on a Mac environment, that you could allocate certain cores from the processor to when you're running your virtual environment, your virtual OS, be it Linux or Windows. So this is another important thing to know. If you're thinking of running numerous operating systems at the same time, the more cores you have that you could allocate to those operating systems, the better.
Great. So if someone's doing a lot of presentation and the multimedia thing, you guys are saying make sure you get a lot of RAM in there and memory.
Yes, absolutely. What happens is people, when they go to buy a new computer, very often, if you're not doing very, very high-end stuff, which, say, for instance, video processing and things like that, the more RAM you have will actually enable you to, shall we say, do more for less. It's not necessarily going to make the machine faster, but it will make it more responsive. It won't increase its maximum speed in terms of actually doing certain functions through the processor, but it can handle more functions at one time without having to swap back to disk. The thing that slows most computers down is the time it takes to read whatever data it cannot hold in memory from the hard drive. If you can hold more of that data in memory, the faster your computer will appear to be to you. So you'll feel it's more responsive.
Yeah, now talking about hard drives and hard drive speed and all that, yes, it does make a big difference to go to a 7200 RPM compared to a 5400 RPM hard drive. Of course, the fastest would be a solid state drive. The acronym is SSD. But one thing to keep in mind is how much data you have on your computer. So if you're about to run out of space, you have like 5 gigs left or less, or I don't know, even 10 gigs left, your computer will start to act slow because it's going to it needs room to breathe. So always make sure that you have at least 50 gigs free of space on your hard drive, so that you could actually, let the operating system do what it needs to do. If you see that you're running out and you're, getting close to that mark, it might be a good idea to either clean up the files that you don't need. Word documents or stuff like that is not going to really clean up that much because they're not that big. It's usually those big movie files or music files that you have in your computer that's going to make the difference. Or it might be a good idea to upgrade to a new hard drive. Or if you can't, because you don't want to go through the hassle of replacing the hard drive inside a portable computer because they're kind of difficult, you could invest in an external drive.
Let's talk about hard drives and external drives. The one thing that you should all do is actually get an external drive if you have a Mac. There's very good software for backing up your machines. What happens is there's a time machine backup on the Macs, and this way you can back up your files. Hard drives die. I don't care who you are, how much you spent. Hard drives are consumable. At some point, it will break, it will die, you will lose your data. This is why you should always back up your computer. And Apple provides you with a very easy, very good software that allows you to back up your data. It does it for you. It's in the background. You really don't have to do anything. And to recover your files is extremely easy. You don't have to have a degree in computer science in order to recover your files. Also note that OIT, or IT, Department of IT now, that's our new name, we do actually have a backup service. Of course, it will cost you. But, for quick and dirty or at home, definitely use an external drive. You can get a USB drive, a FireWire drive, a Thunderbolt hard drive. Some of them do all of that. And you can back up your data, and at least if something happens, you have a way to get it back. Even if your hard drive were just to die tomorrow, you could quickly recover all of your data.
Now, do you guys have any recommendations for size of the external hard drive? Is bigger better, or?
Well, this is one of the places where I would say it really depends on what you're going to store on there. If you're going to store um, videos, the bigger is definitely better. If you're going to use it for day-to-day things where you're going to always be writing back and forth, not necessarily the biggest, but the faster is better. One thing to keep in mind is what kind of interface are you is that external drive able to do? Is it only USB? USB is usually your cheapest option, but it's not your fastest. If you're on a Mac and you know you're always going to be on a Mac, it might be a good idea to get something that either does FireWire or the new interface out there that's called Thunderbolt. Those are just too new, and then the prices on them are too high. But if you want really good speed, that's where you would go. The ones that we opt to do for our work is the ones that have triple interface. They'll have USB, they'll have FireWire and different speeds of FireWire. Some of them even have eSATA, but the Macs don't have that unless you actually add a card that'll read that. But that's another story.
Great. And there's different kinds, like this orange one up here that's more durable than others. Is that right?
Yes, that's one of those rugged drives. Various manufacturers make versions of drives like that. If you're going to be carrying this drive around, it's a smaller drive, it's a portable drive, 2.5-inch drive. You want something that is sort of, they refer to it as ruggedized or something like that. Certainly it's helpful because if you were to bang it around in a laptop bag, or if you were to drop it or pull it off a table and it falls and hits the ground, odds are it's not going to break. If you get a standard desktop drive, they will break. Now, note that you're probably going to pay more for a ruggedized drive. So it's always a balance between what your needs are and what your ability to purchase is. So, you don't want to break the bank if on a ruggedized drive if it's going to be sitting at home, 85, 90% of the time. At that point, I would probably just look for a larger, maybe slightly faster drive for doing backups.
And do you guys have any site recommendations that you go to, like websites when you purchase these?
Yeah. Well, actually, if you don't mind, I was going to pretty much take people through what we usually do when we spec out a machine and what we do with RAM and stuff like that. So see if I could actually try to share my screen here. This is the Division of Information Technology Academic Computers for TERPs, or ACT, as we call it. And if you want to shop for an Apple computer, you click on that link where it says, if you want to shop for an Apple computer, and then you log in. Then you will see options for what type of purchase you want to buy, if it's something personal or if you're actually buying for your institution. So we're just going to pretend that we're buying something for us. You will then be taken to Apple's website, and then you basically see the same store as if you would go to store.apple.com, except you'll notice that it has our logo up the top. This says Academic Computers for Test right here. Then let's go ahead and select a laptop, because that's basically a popular one right now. Let's go with a 15-inch. It's like the middle of the line, and then we'll select this one here at the bottom. If you notice here, these are the still trying to get used to this whole thing. All right. Well, All right. Okay, that's better. So if you see here, this first part, the processor is kind of locked on these laptops, so you can't really change it unless you go back to the previous screen and choose a different computer. But just so I can show you the difference in price when you're buying a computer specifically for the memory. It'll come the standard 4 gigs of RAM. If you want to get 8 gigs, it's going to cost you $180. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. If I show you another website here, for example, this is Crucial, or this is another website that we also like, is DMS. If you go in here, you look memory for that same computer, I'll show you the price difference. We'll go to the new ones. The one that I was looking at was Mac Pro 15-inch 2.2 1.i7. So we look for that same one in here, 15-inch 2.2 i7 right here, right? And if we want to get 8 gigs of RAM for that one, it's $89. I will highlight right here. So upgrading on Apple's site is $180, and it's $100 less if you buy it from a third party. And that was just one site that I went to look for. If I really was going to try and do this, I'll look at several sites. Like, for example, I'll also look to see what Crucial offers or what other people out there offer for that same speed of RAM. And if you go out there to look for other RAM, it's important that you make sure that it's certified by Apple, that it's actually tested on Apple devices, because not all the RAM out there will run on Apple devices. So that's something to keep in mind when you're configuring your device. It'll actually make a huge difference if you're getting multiple computers for your staff or people in the office. Upgrading the RAM from Apple, it usually tends to be a lot more expensive than if you go for a third party. So, you pick your several options in here for hard drive and whatever else you might want to do with it. One thing to keep in mind is the warranty, okay? If you want, because if you select the warranty right here, this is only 3 years, but through the school you could actually get 4 years. To be able to do that, this is not where you would select that warranty. So you keep that at none and add your computer once you have finished configuring it. Let's continue shopping and take you back out to the education site. And I believe if you could go here, recommended systems maybe, you could actually pick the individual warranty that you want for your computer. Yeah. See, these brown boxes here are the different coverages, and you can see where it says 4-year Apple Care protection. So we'll look for the ones for the MacBook Pro that we selected, and there it is right there. So we're going to add that to the cart. And so now we have our computer and our warranty for it. So that's one thing to keep in mind with that. It gives you an additional year, and also if you do it this way, you could actually come to the OIT help desk and get a service right there instead of shipping anything back to Apple or anything like that. So that's my spiel on buying a computer.
Now let's move on a little bit to iPads or the smartphones. If someone wants to set up their email to come into their iPad or smartphone, or set up maybe the UMD secure.
The UMD secure connection via wireless?
Yes, that's what I mean.
Actually, configuring an iPhone or an iPad for the UMD mail is actually fairly simple, and actually there are directions on the help desk website. You can always go there. We're also working on developing and setting up a mobile device management server. With that, what happens is you'll just be able to go there, you'll click on an icon, it'll download, and then the only thing you have to do is type in your name and password, and it'll configure it for you. Actually, we may have already put that up on the help desk website. Leroy, do you know if they put that up there yet? I know that they were working on that documentation, but shortly there should be something up.
Okay, great. That's easy. Something to look forward to.
Give us a second. We're going to see if we can pull up the website with that documentation so you can see it. It's actually pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so this is basically what I did. I just went to itsc.umd.edu, and I just typed in iOS in the search field. Let me actually replicate that so you guys can see it from the beginning. So here I am. I just typed in itsc.umd.edu, and this is what I see when I do that. And then the search field right here at the bottom, not the one on the top, but the one at the bottom, says search results for keywords, and I just put in iOS, and let's see what comes up. I see 4 pages that were written for iOS, so we could just look at the first one. This is how to set up your iOS device to read up TerpMail as an example, and it'll basically guide you through all the steps that you need to do. It's got pictures in there and everything, so all you have to do pretty much is just put in the fields your username and password and just go through the steps about what you need to do. That's pretty much it.
If you don't feel confident doing it, you can always bring it by the Department of IT help desk, and we'll be happy to help you set up your iPad, your iPhone, even if you have an Android phone, stuff like that. We'll be happy to help you out. Just stop on by and we'll take care of it for you.
Yeah, another famous one that you guys saw me click on is how to configure for wireless. If you don't always want to be typing in your password every time that you want to connect to the wireless when you're on campus, it's right there. It's very simple. You only have to do this whole setup once, and every time that your device is near campus where there's range for the UMD-secure wireless network, you'll automatically be connected. So this is one of the ones that everybody always does as soon as they get their device, so you're always connected as soon as you're on campus.
You would actually just what happens now is you would email that file to yourself, and you would open up the attachment within iOS on your iPhone or iPad, and it will step you through a setup process where you answer a couple questions and type in your name and password, and it sets up your iOS device, and off you go. You'll be able to connect to secure wireless and have a fairly secure connection. Another wireless option that is out there that some of you may not know about is called Eduroam, And Eduroam is sort of neat. It's not a secure network in terms of like UMD Secure. I mean, it's as secure as you can expect one to be, but it's a little bit more open. And it basically allows you to log in with your email address as your username, and then your UMD email password as your password. So, for instance, my name is, or your name would be username at umd.edu would be your actual login name for Eduroam, and then your password would be your email password. What happens here is it'll allow you to connect all around campus to wireless. Eduroam is pretty much all across campus at this point, I would think. And it also allows you to connect at other universities around the area and around the country that are members of the whole Eduroam, group. I don't know what we would call them. But that's sort of neat. So if you do travel to other universities a lot, you may want to set your device up to use that. You can also use it on your laptops and other devices that are wireless.
Yeah, some of the partner schools on Eduroam are also across the country in Europe and places like that, so it's a good one to have.
Ooh, that's really cool. I'll have to get that one. Does anyone have any questions?
Don't be shy.
How are you spelling the Eduroam thing?
I believe it's Eduroam.
Okay, great. Well, maybe one last topic we could just touch on, or
Actually, before we move on from that to more address that question, you don't need to actually remember the name of the network, because when you go to actually connect to wireless networks, you'll see a list of them. For example, if you're on your iOS device or if you're on your computer, it'll just show up on the list of available networks. So you just pick it out from the crowd. It's not, you have to actually remember the correct spelling.
okay, great, thanks. So do you guys want to talk a little bit about the VPN that we offer, or how that works, or what it is, and
All right, I can start with that one. Basically, VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. It's used to ensure a connection between you and a service that we offer here at the school. It also gives you, if you want to have more security than what you already have, if you're connected to UMD Secure on your iOS device, you could also create they call it like a tunnel between you and what you're getting to, so that nobody sees what you're doing. Every information that you sent to and from your device is through that tunnel, and nobody else sees what's going through that. So if you don't want people snooping around on what you're doing, you would use VPN. Some of the services that the staff of the university does, that what they need to get to access records or things like that, they need to go through the VPN, so it's mandatory that you access it through a VPN. So that's one of the things to keep in mind. If you're on a Mac, you need to get to install it on your computer. You could go to the help desk website. Actually, if Walt, could you go ahead and share your screen so we could show folks how to get this done? You go to helpdesk.unity.edu. The client is free for university personnel. All you need to do is make sure that you remember what your username and password is, and you can download it. All right.
That's just a grow. You want to speak or you?
Yeah. All right. So now what you can see is on the left side of the window, when you go to the main help desk site, you see Get Software. Then you go down to where it says Virtual Private Networking or VPN, and you select Mac VPN. So once you click on that, it'll take you to the website, and you can download the client from there. It'll work on any computer that has macOS 10.5 or later. You click on Installing and Configuring, and that will actually show you how to set it up and everything. If you go back and click on the actual name of the client, this will ask you for your university credentials, so you type those in, and then it will actually give you a link where you could actually download it. It's fairly simple to do. And let me see, I believe we might have it installed on this computer, so if we don't, then we won't be able to show you. Yes, we do.
And this would be helpful for if you're a faculty member and you're working with students' grades, really confidential kind of things.
I believe for that purpose, it's mandatory that you do that. You can't really access these records if you're not coming in through a VPN. So before folks are given this type of access, they're trained on how to get there. But if you want to use it anywhere, we've installed it here on this computer, so I'm going to show you guys how to do that.
One other thing that you need a VPN for is if you want to access a Windows file share from off campus, you need to use the VPN in order to connect to that service. And often, many of the Mac file shares, if they're secured, they will require it too. Not all the Mac file shares require it, but many will. So that's another consideration. I'm trying to think what else there might be that we know is required. I know if you're going to remote to certain servers, for instance, that you're going to have to use that. Pretty much anything that requires an on-campus address to connect to, you can connect to from off-campus with a VPN client. If you're off-campus and it is restricted to campus only and you don't have a VPN client, you will not be able to connect to it. So keep that in mind.
All right, so once you install it, you guys, let me begin the sharing. You will have to resize your screen at home if you're looking at it, or scroll down to where I'm looking at. Once you install it, you'll see a folder on your applications folder called Cisco. You go in there, and then you'll see two files, one for uninstalling it and one for running it. So you double click on the one that says Cisco AnyConnect VPN client. Because we've already pre-configured ours, by just typing in vpn.umd.edu. It's already in there from our last session. If you've never run it before on that computer, you'll have to type in vpn.umd.edu. The instructions that we showed you earlier will guide you through all that, but just so that you know. And then you click on the select button. And then you see this thing here called groups, where you're given different groups of what you could connect to. The one that most people use is UMD or UMD Wireless or UMD Apps. If you just want a straight up secure connection through VPN, the default UMD will service you just fine. If you want to access certain parts of services, for example, student records or personal services, the one that they'll direct you to use is UM Apps. So, sorry, you put in your university credentials in there, and you click on connect. And once you do that, this icon up here on the top right next to the time will change to connected, and that's where you would go back and to disconnect from. And this option here at the bottom will change to not be grayed out. The connect one will be grayed out, and then you can just click disconnect. Or if you just all together quit it, it'll disconnect for you, and then you're back to the same networking that you used to have before. So that's pretty much it for VPN. Does anybody have any questions about VPN or anything like that?
Are there any questions that you guys typically get, I don't know, from faculty, or your most common questions? I guess one of them is the wireless issue.
I don't know. We get a whole range of questions. Typically, I guess one of the questions a lot of people may ask about with things like various, the antivirus software, for instance. On the Macs, you can use antivirus software. We actually provide antivirus software at the same location on the website, the OIT Help Desk website, as the VPN client. You'll see it's the entry just above it when you go there to download it. And we definitely recommend that if you have concerns about that you go ahead and use that. I guess other questions we have are about various plugins or why they can't get certain things to work. Browsers have a lot of plugins. Amongst them would be things like Flash, Silverlight. On Macs, if you want to watch a lot of Windows media files, you want to download something called Flip for Mac, or Windows Media Components for QuickTime, which is essentially this application or this plugin called Flip for Mac, which allows you to view those. And you should definitely install all those things, especially things like Flash. You want to make sure you're always up to date. And if you get an automatic pop-up asking you to update Flash, don't do it. What I always do is I always quit that, and then I will navigate myself to Adobe's website and download the latest version myself. That's the one way that people tend to try and spoof you into installing something malicious. So if you're on a website and suddenly it pops up saying, oh, you have the wrong version of Flash and this and that, don't do it. Go directly to Adobe yourself. This way you know where it's coming from.
Great.
Yeah, just to continue on what Walt was talking about, thing that was making the news about recently on that malware that just came out for Apple computers, that flashback exploit. Just so that for your peace of mind, just to make sure that everything that you have is not affected or anything like that, just make sure that you run software updates from Apple. Just go to the Apple menu, click on software updates, make sure you have all of your updates that you were told to restart your computer. After you do that, go back and run it again just to make sure that there's nothing in there left. the same thing that you would do on Windows to make sure your stuff is always updated. And Apple did release a fix and something that will prevent you from having it or from getting infected in the future. So as long as you have all of your updates, you should be good to go.
Okay, great. Well, thank you guys both. Does anyone have any final questions before we finish up for today?
Well, people come up with questions. One thing I wanted to say, if you're an instructor on campus and you want your students to go do work, but they don't might necessarily have the software that you want them to do it on. For example, if it's something really expensive that they can't afford, it might be already installed in any of our computer labs across campus. To do that, to know what's out there, what software we already have installed, what you need to go to is www.oit.umd.edu/where-to-go. Actually, I could just and when you go there, it'll basically tell you where our labs are, what software is installed, what kind of hardware is on those computers. And then, there's labs there that are 24 hours, so your students could do their work at any time. If there's software that, is going to be pretty much impossible for your students to get because of their budget, you could actually speak with us, and we could see about installing it on the labs for you so that students have access for it. So it's a great way for professors to make sure that their students get their work done.
That's great. That's definitely good to know.
Additionally, the Department of IT does have two computer classrooms they support. One's a 36-seat PC lab, and then we also have a dual boot Mac PC lab with 32 seats. So what you can do is contact the Learning Technologies and Environments Department, and they can help you reserve a room if it's available at the time at which you want to teach your class. And it's it's a great way for students to have access, and for you as a professor and instructor to show them how to do something that you may want them to go out into the labs later and use. Generally, the software that you find in our computer labs is also found in the computer classrooms that we have. And when I'm talking about computer classrooms, I'm not talking about the standard classroom setup where there's that one computer for the instructor for doing your presentations, your PowerPoints. It is actually where each student has their own computer.
Okay, great. And in those, there's the Adobe ones, right? Like the Adobe Suite of Tools and Camtasia. Are those in there or not?
I believe Camtasia is in the FTC, but there's the Adobe Suite. You'll see the Final Cut Suite, all sorts of MATLAB, Mathematica, SPSS or whatever its new name is, and SAS, SAS, and various things of that sort. MATLAB, Mathematica. I'm trying to think. There are a few other ones. Pretty much, if it's not there, ask us. We probably could find it.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. Well, if there's no more questions today, I guess then we'll wrap it up. One thing, a final note that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention is that next week we have our Innovations in Teaching and Learning Conference, which is co-hosted by the Division of Information Technology and the Center for Teaching Excellence. And it's going to be on Thursday and Friday, April 26th and 27th. And we have a lot of faculty from across the university that are going to be showcasing their work and things that they've been doing, some really cool and innovative things. So definitely there's still time to register, and just go to this link on here and get signed up for that. But On that note, thank you, Walt and Leroy, so much for coming here. I learned a lot, and I'm sure our audience did as well, and we'll also be posting this archive session to our OTAL website, otal.umd.edu. So thanks, guys, and everyone have a great day. This is our final webinar for the spring semester, but we'll be back in the fall. So stay tuned and check our website probably late summer for what the next upcoming sessions will be. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all.
Yes, thanks for having us.